I call Andrew Williams.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I take a call on behalf of New Zealand First, and in my address I hope to take the politics out of it and get back to the basis of this debate, which is all about the environment and about these very special islands in the Subantarctic. Mr. Speaker, this bill represents a 400,000 hectare protected area which will come into law as a result of this bill going through the House tonight and when it's signed off by the Governor-General. A very special part of New Zealand, these three sets of islands, the Antipodes Islands, the Bounty Islands and Campbell Islands off the southeast coast of New Zealand mainland. The Antipodes Islands, some 860 kilometres southeast of Stewart Island, were first discovered in 1800 by Captain Henry Waterhouse on HMS Reliance. So we're talking about several hundred years ago, one of the very early discoveries in terms of the island mass of New Zealand. It also now is one of 3 World Heritage Status areas in New Zealand. We have Fiordland as one of our World Heritage Status areas. We have Tongariro National Park up in the North Island. And then this third one, the Subantarctic Islands, which in 1998 were accorded World Heritage Status. So it's a very important third part of our World Heritage collection. Mr. Speaker, in having World Heritage Status, we effectively are the guardians on behalf of the citizens of the world for this particular location. And therefore it is very special, and it's incumbent on us as New Zealanders to ensure that this area is protected. The sea around the Bounty Islands is the deepest in New Zealand's territorial waters. It is some 3,000 metres deep, so it's an extraordinary piece of ocean in New Zealand's territorial waters. 80% of endemic projected species in New Zealand, meaning that they only exist in New Zealand, are found out in the oceans around New Zealand. And over a dozen species in these subantarctic islands are endangered, such as the southern royal albatross. Mr. Speaker, we're very fortunate now that New Zealand has 34 marine reserves, and this will become the latest marine reserve. And it's very special when you do visit some of them, such as the original one, Goat Island, up near Lee, which now has wonderful fish life and wonderful for schools and universities and the public to go and visit and see what has happened as a result of that marine reserve. To go to the likes of Akaroa Marine Reserve now that's been provided, and other marine reserves around the coast where fish species and fish life have been preserved, and marine life have been preserved as a result of making areas protected. Mr. Speaker, the Local Government Environment Select Committee considered a great deal of evidence on this bill, and it was one of the more pleasing bills that the whole committee was in agreement with what was required to put this through into legislation. The committee agreed on a shorter review time in terms of what was originally in the legislation, and again we felt that that was appropriate because of the special nature of these islands, that the review period be reduced. And Mr. Speaker, it was a very good cordial agreement by the Local Government Environment Committee to achieve a good outcome for this. It's pleasing to see that this week Her Majesty's New Zealand ship Wellington set sail from Devonport Naval Base yesterday, heading to the Subantarctic Islands, and it will be picking up Minister Nick Smith on the way somewhere as it travels south, and the Minister will be on there. So by the time this bill is enacted and perhaps signed off by the Governor-General in the next couple of days and is in law, that the Minister will actually be arriving in these islands to make the appropriate announcements, and I'm sure the National Party will make sure that that is heard loud and clear in all available media. But more especially on board the HMNZS Wellington, there are 12 young Sir Peter Blake Trust young leaders on board, and they left from Auckland, and they have been selected as some of the top young leaders this country has, and they're going down there, and in the spirit of Sir Peter Blake and all the great work that he's done out on the oceans around the world and in the marine environment, those 12 young New Zealanders are going with representatives from DOC, from NIWA, from Otago University and a number of other organisations for a 13-day expedition, of course as hosted by the Royal New Zealand Navy, to look at the Subantarctic islands. The group will, while they are there, while looking at the islands, will be drafting a feasibility plan for a world-leading subantarctic research station, which is hoped to be completed by 2015. The station will allow New Zealand scientists and worldwide agencies to study the effects of ocean and climate change, and also the effects on many of those endangered species, wildlife, marine life, and the southern oceans around the island. So this has, again, a huge potential for the outreach of New Zealand into a special part of the oceans that surround New Zealand, and we certainly commend those young people for the good work that they'll be doing over the next 13 days on board that naval ship and with the naval officers and the many other government support people and scientists that are in support of them to come up with some good recommendations as to how that station will be established. So, Mr. Speaker, in closing, it's not often that we have unanimous support in this House, but this is one of those occasions. This is a special occasion because this will be our most far-reaching and outpost in terms of a marine reserve for New Zealand as a nation. It is very special, and it shows that New Zealanders as a whole place a high priority on the environment and conservation, and ensuring that we do our very best for the natural environment. So New Zealand First is very happy to support and commend this bill.
I call Jackie Dean.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's amazing how jealous we all are of